Hi, Dillon is here, and I want to show you how I convert 223 brass into 300 hammer brass. The reason is it's free for me, the brass is, and it's pretty quick if you have the Dillon setup. So the reason I like LC brass because it's pretty consistent and has nice wall thickness, suitable. So the process is very quite simple. So Dillon doesn't have a trim die for their RC 1500 trimmers, so I'm using a 300 blackout trim die, and it works great, and it passes the case gauge. So I'll show you my setup. The first two stations here are just hold downs. They essentially just this die I took out the internals, so it when you press the ram down, screw it until it touches and lock it down snugly. Same thing here. And this is to hold the shell plate down to maximize consistency, because when you're pushing on one end, it flexes the shell just a little bit, and you get that little variation depending how much you know force is being applied. So with that kind of setup, I was able to achieve very consistent trim lengths, and that's what I want. So at first I attempt to do this. I put a full length sizing die in the first station, and I was getting pretty wild range in trimming, and it was just, I decided that's not working out. Basically it was expanding and converting this case. This is a that one should be for 300 blackout later. Essentially, it was converting the case with a very long neck, and then once it got to the trim, it would trim it down. What I'm doing right now is I'm just having them being partially converted with a trim die. The only drawback, it leaves a little bit of a burr, which later you can clean up using the burring tool, or just throw them in a tumbler and it will come out just fine. And the last stage, I have the die that's not fully screwed in. The purpose is only to expand the neck. So right now, if I take I'll show you. Essentially, if I take this die so that I can press it down without the blades hitting the shell, I'll show you what happens. See, the neck has been expanded, and I got the complete case dropped out. As I mentioned, that there's a little bit of debris and burr, but once you clean it up, it looks very clean. And I can show you how it passes the gauge check. So here's a case gauge checker, and if you drop it, you can see it's flush. And I'll show you that I get, so I'm moving the bar across and I get nothing, and then on the bottom I get a little bit of a step, which is how it should be. Let's try again. Nothing on top, and then here I get a little bit of step. So that's how it should be. It passes the check. And let's measure some of the trim lengths. 1.597, 1.598, so let me do a few more. Okay, so that one was off. 1.595, 1.597, 1.5965, 1.595, 1.595, 1.595. Okay, so this is actually spot on. That's the trim length that you're supposed to do according to the cartridge specifications. 1.595. So after the firing, it might stretch a little bit, and then I can trim it again. But as you can see, it's pretty consistent. So let me focus on the setup. So the way you set up the trim die is before you screw on the trimmer, the Dillon trimmer, you just have to screw in the die and then size it without trimming, and use the case gauge checker to see how it fits. Now the trick is, if you have one of these, which is awesome by the way, because you can also check if your bullet will fit without having to use a Hornady bullet comparator. See here, you can tell. Yeah, it's actually very cool. I like that a lot. I want one like this if possible for 300 blackout in other calibers. You can essentially just drop the bullet and see if it's compatible or not with this cartridge. So, for example, let's say I want to try Lee bullet, and I drop it in and see the line. It tells me that this is pretty much, you can tell where the shoulders are. That's where the case neck is. So this bullet would need to be seated this far in order to work, but it will work as long as the overall length is good. But if I try a different bullet, like let's see, I have a RCBS bullet. This will not work because you can see the ogive of the bullet. It rests over here, and the case, it would need to be seated inside the case way too far and pretty much be unsupported. So yeah, this case gauge is awesome. But the purpose of this video is actually what I was going with. If you have an open type of gauge, then you can use that alone neck to pretty much just drop the cartridge and see where it sticks out. For example, I have a different cartridge case gauge that's open, so I'll show you an example. If you just drop it like this, Again, it's a wrong cartridge, but you get the idea. If the neck is long, it doesn't matter, it'll stick out. Now here with my case gauge, unfortunately, you would have to trim it somehow to see where the shoulders are at. So it's a trial and error, but essentially once you figure out how far to set your shoulders, then you can decide how much trim do you need. As you can see on this long one, then it's the how far you want to screw in the trimmer to the relationship to the die to see um, how much trimming you need. And the last step, like I mentioned, is just the expander. Expands the neck, and that's it. So I'm gonna turn on the trimmer. It's gonna be loud, but it will show you um, how it's done and how quickly it's done. So this is it, guys. This is how I do it, and it's a much quicker way, obviously, than doing this by hand.